All right, welcome into a Vegas Square Snippet. I am joined in studio with Tony Johnson himself. We are going to be talking about the first wave of coaching hires in the NFL. We had 8 open jobs to start the offseason, and we have filled 5 of them up to this point, January 9th. The word carousel really personifies what it is. So let's just start down the list. I mean, today, Cleveland filled their job. I don't know if unexpected, really, but, I mean, many thought Greg Williams, many thought Mike McCarthy. There was a Josh McDaniels rumor, who he actually never officially interviewed with them. Then Freddie Kitchens gets the job, which, again, he was the offensive coordinator after Hugh got fired. They had that tag team with Greg Williams. Again, many thought Greg Williams would maybe stay aboard. He was given his walking papers. Many thought he would be the head coach. That did not come to fruition. Now we've got Freddie Kitchens and Baker Mayfield tag teaming up. I'm guessing that Baker Mayfield's success is the reason that Freddie Kitchens is the new head coach of the Cleveland Browns.
You'd have to expect so. That's the main reason for it. And certainly, my guess is that there was a lot of discussion with Baker that management had about how you feel about Freddie, and is this a thing that you think can take us to the next level. And my guess is Baker was probably in very full support. I don't think they would have hired Freddie Kitchens without Baker being 100% behind it. I mean, it's that important, certainly, the quarterback position in this day and age.
Yeah, most definitely. And especially, they didn't want Freddie Kitchens to go anywhere. From what I'm reading, he was actually denied permission to even interview for the other head coaching positions under contract with the Browns. So whether or not he was going to be the head coach, he was definitely going to be in the Cleveland organization. I think as kind of a thank you or whatever you want to call it, they said, why make this guy the OC? If he and Baker are that tight, let's get him in, running the show. Again, it's hard to say that Kitchens, although he's a good offensive coordinator for the last 9 weeks of the season, is he going to make a good motivator, a good leader, a good guy to when a defensive player has an issue, can he be available in his office to talk and relate, and the empathy, and that kind of stuff really resonates. We've talked about guys who are successful with that: Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, John Harbaugh. I mean, those are the 3 off the top of my head.
Right.
But successful, sustainable, long-term coaches who aren't just one-sided mentalities. Can Freddie Kitchens do that? Is the first question. And if he can, I mean, you're talking about a guy who could make the dog pound and the Cleveland Brown franchise respectable.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, we've talked about all throughout the season on these podcasts, going to Cleveland, whoever was going to get drafted, because we knew in the draft they were going to draft a quarterback. We all didn't think it was going to be Baker, but everybody who gets drafted to Cleveland has one of 2 reactions, and I think that defines the character of that person.
Yes.
Oh, shit, I'm going to Cleveland. My life is over. This sucks. Let's just go collect a paycheck, not get brain damage, and be out of the league in 4 years. Or me, and I'm not an NFL quarterback, but my mindset would be, if I could turn back this Cleveland Browns franchise into something respectful, playoff contender, if I could be the savior, I'm going to get so much pussy in Cleveland.
Yeah. Legendary.
Yes. I'll never buy a meal, a drink, a hooker, or anything.
It's true. It's very true.
So I'm hoping that Kitchens has that mindset. I'm just not sure if he's able to do both parts.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it. Rex Ryan, defensive-minded guy, wasn't able to motivate people. John Fox, defensive-minded guy, wasn't able to really get the rah-rah, these old-school-minded coaches. And I know that the wave is going one way, and it's all offense, but, I mean, a team is all about chemistry and stuff. And I know I'm just talking about I'm not just talking about Kitchens. There's some other hires that we'll get to, but I mean, it's hard to say that you hate the move. Maybe I'm just trying to be the pullback on the reins to this offensive just slide.
It's true. It's a tough spot. This is a guy that's never really been a coordinator for even a full season.
Yeah, he's been, 9 games or something?
Yeah, that's it. And he was a position coach before that. It is an unbelievably quick step up, and it's one of those that we've seen, I think, in times past. While you might be great at the X's and O's, and I'm not actually even sure we're convinced that Freddie's a great X's and O's guy. I don't think we're convinced of that. But even if you are, it's everything else that comes with the head coaching responsibilities. Being able to, as you said, motivate players, lead the team, be able to, deal with the media, all the other extraneous things that go with the travel and team and personal stuff and all that other jazz is just, it's a lot. And it's very difficult to handle all of this and yet still coach and still win games, as a team with just only a specified amount of hours in a day. There's just not a lot of time. So to me, that's going to be the biggest hurdle here is actually just keeping this franchise, together and moving forward. And to me, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In that sense, Cleveland has always been flailing away trying to find, the right answer or the answer for now many years, decades now. It seems like since whenever this organization got going again, and it's. I don't know. To me, this is not the right one. I know Todd Haley speaks a lot of really, really good words about Freddie Kitchens. He's been with him for a while now, all the way back to their days in Arizona. And Todd Haley seems to be he's the offensive mind to me that was really able to drive this offense forward this season. Even before he was let go. When they had the whole fallout of everybody, the offense was not the issue. Certainly, they'd already improved significantly from the previous year. So, I'm not really sure, what that means. But to me, that's the issue with Freddie Kitchens. Not necessarily, coaching offense, which he very well might be fine about. It's everything else. And to me, this job seems like it's probably potentially too big, for him in this sense. It's not a hire I would have gone with. I would have gone with more of a established sort of person, especially when you're kind of on the cusp. I mean, we have to feel that Cleveland is really on the cusp of being able to become a winning team here. Certainly with the last 6 or 7 games that we saw, they were an above average AFC team, no doubt about it.
Now, I need you to do some basic math for me. Are you ready?
We'll try. We'll try.
We are currently in the year 2019. We completed a 2018 season, so for all intents and purposes, let's use the number 2018.
Okay. All
right, and then let's take the number 2012. Let's subtract 2018 from 2012. What do you get?
6.
Okay. That's 6 years, correct?
6 years.
So this guy, Freddie Kitchens, is the 6th head coach in 6 years.
Yeah.
And that includes Hugh Jackson being the coach for 2.5 years.
Yeah, almost 3, exactly. That's how amazing that is.
Yeah, so, I mean, one hand, you're like, yeah, why not let's just throw another noodle on the wall, see what sticks. But on the other hand, you're like, okay, this is John Dorsey, who came over with a lot of respect and a lot of pedigree, and so it's hard to really say that, he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, like you said, X's and O's, controlling an entire organization. At this point in time, obviously not being able to buy your own groceries, I would imagine you'll have some input, but, John Dorsey's going to put everything out there for you, and hopefully it's a match made in heaven. I'm not dying to see the Browns be Super Bowl contenders, but they were entertaining this year for sure.
Definitely, yeah. So it's good to see teams like this that are not cookie cutter, doing things like we've seen over the last many years. It is nice to see fresh faces and new ways of doing stuff. It's great for the NFL. I don't think there's any question that it's good for the NFL and the game to have teams like this with young quarterbacks and young coaches that are trying to rise, no question.
Well, speaking of young coaches, we're about to flip the script.
Go the other side.
Yes, because you and I talked about this, and you think, well, I don't want to take away your thunder here, but the Denver Broncos hired Vic Fangio to be their head coach. And I know that you're not a huge fan of this.
I'm not. I think this is
even more so than Kitchens, I would imagine.
I think this is the worst hire of the well, it's hard to say. I think there's like 3 obscenely weird bad hires, but this is the worst.
Yeah, I was going to tie that all in. I feel like
I'm sorry.
I feel like there's a lot of no, but I mean, I feel like this is a lot of piss poor hiring. And the thing is it to me, and I never understood this. Like, you're plucking guys off of teams that weren't successful this year.
Right.
I mean, there's still 8 teams in there. And the only person I think that was been interviewed was Brian Flores, the defensive quote unquote coordinator for New England. But you're plucking guys off of teams that were mildly unsuccessful.
Right.
And they do that all the time.
It's a strange beast. It's like they're on this shake of needing to hire somebody right away because maybe some of these playoff teams coaches aren't interviewing yet because they're in the playoffs, and so maybe it's okay to wait and figure out what's going on. But yeah, it's this rush.
In all fairness, Vic Fangio, for a very long time, has been a quality defensive coach.
He has, yes, and that's the pros. You look at the pros and cons list of this. Quality defensive coach. He was a guy that stayed on when an entire new staff came in from 2 years ago to this year for the Bears. He was kept. That's very rare in this day and age to keep coaches. Most new head coaches, they bring in all of their own, their quote own people. But the fact that Nagy kept Fangio, I think, meant a lot. And to see now how successful this defense was after keeping Fangio, I think, was certainly the driving force here. If Fangio had gone to another team instead of the Bears this year and hadn't done a really nice job as a coordinator, I don't think he'd have been hired here. I think that was the tie-in here with the Bears from 2 different head coaches is certainly the case. Now, and as you said, the reason I'm not a fan of the hire at all, that's all the good stuff, but is that Fangio seems like a career assistant coach. He's had some issues with management in the past. It was one of the reasons that he wasn't hired for a couple of jobs. He was one of the early potentials for Tennessee. This was back in 2004, 2005, and it had been reported then, and again, I don't know if this is true necessarily or not. Maybe he's, as he's gotten older, he's changed. Who knows? But they didn't get along with, certain types of management. He was a tough guy to sort of deal with and be around. Kind of one of those guys. A little bit of the Greg Schiano kind of deal where you either are okay with him and you like because like his defensive prowess or brain, but it's all the other stuff. It's the personal stuff that you can't stand. And
that's what kind of shocks me because I feel like Elway going into this meeting. I mean, again, he's John Elway, and he can do no wrong. He's the golden boy. But at some point in time, the Bolins are going to be like, dude, this is just not working. That, I mean, according to, if you believe what I'm reading here, the actual candidacy or the coaching vacancy was narrowed down to Vic Fangio and Mike Munchak, 2, let's call them veteran coaches. And I believe Mike Munchak has already been a head coach.
3 times, yes.
Yeah.
one of them was interim, during the season, but yes.
Right.
3 times. Yeah.
So it looks like John Elway's mindset or mentality was to buck the trend of the Sean McVays of the world.
Right.
And go with somebody who may actually be able to. I don't know. I don't know if "relate's" the right word. I got to imagine some of the veterans got to feel like, you bring Sean McVay, you bring Cliff Kingsbury in, and they're just like, dude, this guy's my age.
Yep.
And on the other side, you're looking at a guy who you would imagine has the experience. I don't know. It just the way I read this with him narrowing down the candidates to Fangio and Munchak. It doesn't sound great, but at the same time, it sounds like he may be trying to figure out, maybe what could be his last hire.
I would think so. To me, that's the way I've seen it. I think Elway's done a very, very subpar job, throughout these last many years. I think he got very fortunate to be able to get Peyton Manning, which took them over the hump to get to the Super Bowl, and certainly we'll give him some credit for some of the people they've re-signed that were controversial, some big contracts which ended up being quite good.
I mean, other than Von Miller, what has he drafted? Drafted a lot of trash.
Well, he's drafted. Yeah, the last 3 or 4 years, it's been a lot of trash. It's been very bad, and obviously he keeps making really poor hiring decisions for coaches. So we'll see with Fangio, but. He's had a bit a rough run, and my guess would be, this is probably the last hurrah here. Yeah, Fangio really fades out, and they have another couple of subpar years in a really competitive division. That's the problem with this, is it's going to be tough to get a lot of wins. And this, these two teams, the two teams at the top are quite good. So, that's where I'm at.
Fair enough. All right, let's move over to the Bucks, who have come to terms with Bruce Arians as their next head coach. Jason Light, the general manager, who also another guy probably on his last hire, potentially, definitely on his last leg, has some ties with Bruce Arians. Worked together in Arizona. Cardinals vice president of player personnel in 2013 was Jason Light when Bruce Arians was a head coach there. The question really is now, you have lame duck GM, you have lame duck quarterback. If you're Bruce Arians, you have no ties to either. Obviously, you know that, Jason Light's your friend, he hired you, blah, blah, blah. But if you have a poor season, 6-10 or worse, you'll probably still be there, but those two might not.
Yeah.
So what do you do here with this spot? I mean, obviously you're not worried about the GM, but I mean, you got guys, Dwayne Haskins won, coming out of the draft. I believe the Bucks are drafting 6th, I believe. I haven't looked at the order. But the top 3 spots as it stands right now, quote unquote, don't need quarterbacks. They all drafted quarterbacks in the last draft. So, that being said, how do you get more out of Jameis Winston, or how do you, between now and April, figure out, I need to develop my guy, or whoever's in the free agent market? Could be Nick Foles at this point.
Right.
You are the only part of the triangle that's not on the hot seat now. If you're Bruce Arians, what do you do?
I think you do exactly that. You analyze. He's got now many months to be able to do this, to full analysis and figure out. I mean, he's already been thinking about, obviously, being a commentator and seeing teams from week to week. I think he's got a pretty good idea of what he wants and what he likes. But certainly that's the case right here, is to figure out, well, if there's not a lot of value in the early part of the draft for quarterbacks, then what kind of player can we get in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that might make a lot of sense in development. And in that time, does bringing in somebody like Nick Foles, or does just rolling with Jameis Winston for the next year, or whatever the case is, does that make a lot of sense? And I think that's his strength. Play to your strengths, as always. And Bruce Arians is not only, I think, a good offensive mind, but he certainly has been able to work really well with quarterbacks with limited ceiling. Certainly, I think the case of showing how well Carson Palmer played in the latter part of his career, when he really didn't have a whole lot left, is as impressive as it gets. And Bruce won a lot of games with relatively subpar teams in Arizona, so we got to give him a lot of credit for that. I just don't like, it leaves a little bit of a sour taste, that you retire in a spot and talk about all these things that you want to do in the next part of your life, spending time with your family, et cetera. He gave a long kind of, tearful speech about this, about the NFL has been great to him, and then, what are we, less than 12 months later, almost, that he's getting back into it. I've always liked Bruce Arians, so it's kind of hard to say this, but to me, I don't like that. It's a bad look. I'm not a fan. And, this is a 4-year deal with a 5th-year option. So this is it's a legit, real contract.
70s. And at the same time, he's actually was still under contract with
right, that's why they're
Arizona.
swapping picks.
They swapped picks to kind of resolve the dispute. But the thing that surprised me was originally the league office was like, no harm, no foul.
I was surprised by that too.
I mean, no, that's not the case at all. I mean, if that's the case, then a lot of people can just retire.
Retire, right?
If they want to stop being
so silly.
I always thought a long time ago Barry Sanders was doing that back in.
Yeah, that's a lot of people thought.
I thought he was retiring so that they would just be like, get me the fuck out of Detroit.
Yeah.
But this is a move I like, and obviously I'm a little close with the, talking with that I grew up around the Bucks, and so I keep them, kind of near with the Pats and everything. I like this hire because it's a proven offensive mind, a GM who's in the hot seat, bringing in a guy with a track record instead of just a wild card.
Yeah, agreed.
And not only that, they have also picked up a defensive-minded coach on the other side. They picked up Todd Bowles.
I heard he was going to sign Todd Bowles. He did? He got Bowles?
I believe that's
huge.
Officially...
That's enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it really is big.
Light. I mean, there's a chance it could not work. Obviously, there's a very solid chance that could not work.
Wow.
But I mean, I think you got to imagine for the future, if Arians can do what he's done at every stop he's been at, even if Light's not there, he hit this one out of the park.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And he brought over, I know, a bunch of guys from his previous tenure with Arizona. He's bringing over Byron Leftwich as a coordinator, although my guess is Arians would still probably call plays, though I'm not sure. And then a couple other guys. It looks like Harold Goodwin and Clyde Christensen, which were coaches of Arizona. So
Clyde Christensen used to be the Bucs quarterbacks coach back in the Dilfer and Brad Johnson days.
There you go. So that's it all comes back. The Todd Bowles thing is that cannot go. That can't be said, louder. That is, I think, a huge deal. He's a classic kind of Peter Principle sort of guy. It looks like he might be, have a ceiling as a coordinator, but as a defensive coordinator, he's been very, very good in the time that we've seen him. So maybe not as a head coach, maybe he'll never be a great head coach, but as a coordinator, he's fantastic. So this is, to me, this is the best out of the 5 teams that have made their decisions. This one, to me, I think is clearly the best situation. At least we have a really good idea of exactly what we're going to get. There's no question to me that Tampa Bay will be a better team next year than they were this year. Unquestionable. I don't care who the players are. A lot of them are unknown at this point. Doesn't matter.
I almost wonder if it's really. I mean, you watch the talent's definitely there. Mike Evans is top 5 receiver. Deshaun Jackson's probably not going to be back, but Chris Godwin and Adam Humphries are more than capable of taking.
They really are underrated players. Agreed.
And
that for a while, yeah.
I feel like if they could find a running game, Ronald Jones really disappointed last year as a second-round pick out of USC. I almost feel like these two, Bowles and Arians, are going to bring what wasn't there the last at least 2 years in Tampa, and that's discipline.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
agreed, totally.
Like I said, even if Light's not there to see the finished product, I think he knocked this one out of the park.
Yeah, it may not matter. Exactly. That's the great thing about it.
I mean, he needs a quick turnaround. I'd imagine the Glazers are saying, I don't know what it is, but I got to imagine the bare minimum is 8-8 for him to keep his job. The bare minimum.
I think it's very doable. I really do.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying, like, if he misses the playoffs, I think it's got to be 8-8 is the bare minimum. Because that's a. What were they this year? I think they were 4-12. I have to check the standings, which is sad because they started the year 2-0.
I remember we had the Fitzmagic wagon.
Actually, I think they started the year 3-2.
Really? Okay. Yeah.
Let me see. Where's the NFC? Give me the NFC. They're 5-11.
Okay.
So a 3-win turnaround is doable. It's realistic, especially with the last place schedule. How much do we talk about that? I think the only team in the NFC that really can't do anything with the last place schedule is Tokens Detroit Lions.
Yeah. No, this is. I think it's a great spot. A guy, just a head coach that is used to doing a lot with less, and that's a good spot to be in when you don't have these expectations of you have to win Super Bowls right away.
And the thing is looking at the Bucs, I said they can't go after these wild cards. The Sean McVay types that I said they had to go at. I mean, this is even before Bruce Arians was even a thought. Because I actually thought, I was like, they've got to go hard in the paint for Mike McCarthy. And it looks like, according to what I'm reading, he was never even considered. Which, okay, that's fine, fair enough. And I'm wondering if right when Arians, because Arians is the one that said, this is a team I'd be interested.
This may have been.
And I think Jason Licht was like, well, let's go balls to the wall with this one. So, all right. Speaking of Mike McCarthy, he's gone out of Green Bay, and Matt LaFleur insert in here. Here's the Titans offensive coordinator, worked under both Shanahan, Kyle, and Sean McVay. Both considered obviously mentors or what have you to Mr. LaFleur here, but this is the guy that is called upon to get Aaron Rodgers back to an MVP level. I guess I don't know what do you do with Aaron Rodgers? I mean, in this spot, I got to imagine if the Browns are interviewing Baker Mayfield, not interviewing, but if the Browns are consulting Baker Mayfield for their position, which was actually, according to this, he was actually FaceTimed in some of the interviews.
I believe it. Yep.
I have to imagine that Aaron Rodgers wasn't FaceTimed. I believe he was sitting in some of
Just there. It's probably true. I'm sure he had a
Nevertheless, I'm sure he liked what he saw out of this guy because I'm not saying he came out of left field, but this is one of those, McVay coaching trees. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been his name has popped up at least. I get into the weird nitty gritty kind of dorkiness of looking at these up and coming coaches and schemes and stuff like that. And Matt LaFleur has been at the top for a while. I have a ton of respect as well for Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. I think he's actually probably the second best young coach there is, probably behind Sean McVay. I'm a huge fan of what he's doing in Tennessee, and the words that he used and what he said he had to go through to try to get him out of L.A. last year for this season in Tennessee was really strong. And from a guy
to let him just walk like that, then.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not really necessarily up to. I mean, this is a head coaching job, versus a coordinator. I mean, there's not what more can he do?
I think if you're under contract, you can be.
They can yeah, right. So the problem is, though, do you want that known going forward historically when you have to replace coaches or bring people in that, oh, wow, this is how he treated Matt LaFleur. He wouldn't even let him, interview, for jobs. I think it's a bad look. And so.
All right, well, let's look at this last year because I'm guessing that he didn't impress with his work in 2018 because the Titans offense was very average, and I believe Marcus Mariota statistically had his worst year.
Yeah, it was rough in that sense. No, I think this is the body of work so far that he's had as a coach, overall.
Matt Ryan, Jared Goff.
Exactly. Yeah, we certainly couldn't look at this season and be like, well, this is just an obvious slam dunk. No, definitely not at all. From what I understand, where was the? Oh yes, Notre Dame. That's right. He made a college stop as well that I know was a big deal then. It was 2014 in Notre Dame. That Brian Kelly had talked about here. Yeah, there he is. That was one of those guys that he had wanted, he had been friends with, and they had talked football for a while. I was able to bring him in for a year, and he said he liked where he's definitely a coach that is going places quickly. Yeah, so I mean things like that. I don't know. He's been around and worked with, as you said, with a lot of big time, big name coaches, and it just to me it fits. But we get back to the whole Freddie Kitchens thing. It's going to be the same type of deal. Now you have to, run and be part of run an organization, essentially. Mm-hmm. And the week-to-week stuff that comes with being a coordinator or a position coach is not even anything close to the head coaching spot. Green Bay is also a very odd sort of commodity in all of this. We don't necessarily have a direct, distinct owner, per se. It's a really, really odd way the organization functions, comparably speaking to other teams, and it's just. I don't know. I mean, is what are we going to see? From Matt? Is he ready to take that next step? Well, we've seen from some of the Sean McVay, guys that they are.
To find out. Yeah.
We don't know. We don't know until we see it. But it's a huge risk, obviously, especially with Aaron Rodgers, who is not at the tail end of his career.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers is supposed to be head and shoulders a great quarterback. Is it really that necessary to bring in an offensive innovator, or could you just brought in a guy? And then brought in another coordinator who could have revamped Mike McCarthy's offense or, I guess, juiced it up a little bit.
I think the important thing for them was to find a good personal connection that he had with.
Because the question really is he's. I don't know. What is Aaron Rodgers, 37?
I don't know exactly, but
let's call it 37.
Sure.
This guy signed a 4-year with a 5th option.
Sure.
Barring modern marvels in science.
That takes it the whole way.
Probably his last coach.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're right. The personal connection or something had to be there.
That would be my guess. Is the things that we don't know is probably maybe they know each other and they've known each other for a while. Matt and Aaron. I don't know. I have no idea, obviously, but that would be my guess. Is that this was also in the making. I mean, it's the only team he interviewed with. This year, LaFleur. Mm-hmm. So I just. My guess is this was also in the works, probably in the last previous weeks, because McCarthy's been fired for a while. I don't think this was a brand new deal. So that's my take. But again, we'll see. Just like with Kitchens, we don't know because he's never done anything like this before. So that'll be the biggest hurdle for him. It's not the coaching, not the X's and O's. It'll be running the team.
Fair enough. All right, now let's go to the 5th and final head coach who's been hired and. Biggest head scratcher?
Yes, I think just based on name alone and where it is, yes, not being in the NFL, not an NFL coach.
So we have the Cardinals who hired former Texas Tech head coach and former. I guess he took a tour of the campus at USC once. Former offensive coordinator at USC.
That's rough.
For exactly 1 month and 3 days. He has been given the keys to make the number 1 draft pick this year in the draft. I don't hate it, but I don't get it.
Yeah, this is one I can actually talk about with really vigor because obviously the college sense.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
This is another spot where we talked about with Jason Light, lame duck GM.
Yeah,
Bidwell's already come out and said we need to get this one right.
So weird.
And it's almost like they literally put what's that new craze going on right now with the bird box blindfolds?
Oh yeah,
they literally just
yes,
and just threw a dart.
That's what it feels like.
And it landed on Kingsbury. Now, I feel like again, I can't get in the mind, but I feel like if you liked a guy like Kingsbury, Adam Gase was your slam dunk.
Right. That makes more sense.
He's a professional football head coach with the experience, with the offensive mind. Mm-hmm. It just, to me, I just don't get this one. And again, it's not to disrespect Cliff Kingsbury. I wish him well. It's just like I feel like if this was your direction, Adam Gase is your guy. I mean, no doubt about it.
Yeah, this is just, as you said, this is a dart throw, and it's a wild stab for what. To me, this is, professional football, this is like not a small-time potatoes thing. This is not millions of dollars at stake. And your coach obviously means more than nearly almost any other employee that you have. And it just doesn't, to just take a massive, huge risk without really a whole lot of quality reasoning behind it, per se, is to me a silly thing to do for an organization. But, yeah, the only thing I can speak of is obviously being a much more closer follower to college football, and especially more so the Big 10, Big 12, that area, the Midwest. I followed Texas Tech for a while. Yes, exactly. So
Kansas Jayhawk ball washer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of those out there. This. I followed Cliff for now many years, and it's an interesting thing because we saw, unfortunately, I think the team get better. We're going back to the Texas Tech time. His team got a lot better over the last 2 years, especially defensively, but yet they won fewer games than they had in this first, 1, 2, or 3 years with the team. So that's kind of fascinating in that sense. What we never got from Cliff, which won't matter at this next level, which I think is interesting, is that his recruit, he never got to be a great recruiter. He never improved as a recruiter in the sense of, finding quality talent. He was always sort of in the 40s and 50s range, overall, for a team in the Big 12, and that's not good enough usually. So I think he was more fired because of his lack of recruiting prowess than anything else. What Cliff does and what he does really, really well is talk and be a figure.
Cheerleader.
Yes. Well, yeah, and
the thing is, in the NFL, you don't have to be a fundraiser.
That's true. But that was what he was nearly best at, from what I understand from some pretty good sources, especially
I'm sure
a couple
he
of guys I follow.
schmoozed up as the bigwigs' wives. Look at that guy. He's an Adonis, good-looking man. Yeah. I bet he walked up to a couple of girls and made them clutch their pearls and open up their wallets. And
it's entirely possible. But even in the serious sense of actually,
who says I'm not serious?
No, I do think you're serious. But there's still a lot of old school oil, West Texas kind of wealth too, and he was very, very much a part of being in that world and can affiliate himself in that world as easily as visiting, an 18-year-old kid, in a bad part of Fort Worth or something like that. I mean, he was really legitly, he's a people person, and from what I understand, a very high quality, just dude overall. Talk about accountability and just being real. He is it's amazing, you coach for 6 years at an institution and, lose more games than you win. He was 35-40. And yet the fan base and the majority of Texas Tech fans, and at least of what I've seen and read and on Twitter, is that there is no ill will. He is not one of those people, usually you fire somebody and people are, they're happy and they want this guy gone, whatever. There was not the case. It was really 50-50 with whether he should be fired or not. 35-40 in 6 years, which is seemingly an obvious choice. But it's one of those guys that no matter, he can kind of do the way he is, his persona, he's always going to be well liked. So I think that probably helped a lot. He probably gave an incredibly good interview. He's well spoken, he's thorough, and they're just taking a shot. They're taking a shot on a brilliant offensive mind that wasn't able to get really everything else together.
Hopefully,
at the college level.
We've seen Big 12, Big 12 offenses not translate to the NFL.
Yeah, no, there's no question that this could fail and fail miserably.
And the thing is, I actually, the one thing that's not lost on me, and the troubling factor is you. At least growing up with head coaches, yes, most of them were coordinators, but you wanted to see how they related to all 53 guys on your roster and how they could be a leader. And you talk about how Bill Belichick's such an asshole to the media, but everybody's beating down the door who wants to win to play for him.
Right.
And then you have these teams that are hiring a head coach to strictly focus on one player.
Right.
We've got 3 coaching hires just in this snippet, which is not a snippet anymore. We've got 3 head coaching hires that are, Freddie Kitchens, okay, maybe not. So let's go down to 2. You got Matt LaFleur, who is specifically designed and hired for one player.
That's unquestionably true, yeah.
And while that one player is incredibly important, I just don't know if it's the greatest move. But it's the way that it is. See, that's the difference. Cliff Kingsbury is tied now to Josh Rosen. Matt LaFleur is tied to Aaron Rodgers. Sean McVay didn't feel to me like he was tied to Jared Goff, even though Jared Goff is tied to him, in my opinion.
There may not be a lot of people like Sean McVay. I think, again, in 20-plus years, if we ever have another discussion about this, I think he might end up being one of those, great coaches. But it's possible. And there's just, how many great coaches are there? There's always going to be a small handful because it's really hard to be great. So
greatness is a very small club.
Yeah. So that's my guess, is to compare everyone to Sean McVay, who might be, just kind of head and shoulders of his generation. That I just don't think that's fair. Also, another quick point here: Arizona. I don't think they had a ton of possibility of hiring really high quality people. I don't think that Arizona was a destination that a lot of quality up and coming coaches wanted to go to.
And see, that's actually kind of surprising to me, because I actually believe there's a lot of things that really make Arizona such a better job than, let's take the ones that are still open: Miami, Cincinnati, and the Jets. And Cleveland, which, again, I think the mindset with Cleveland is, if I can be the guy to turn this around. And that's a good thing to have, the drive. I don't have a problem with that. But, Arizona, you got the number 1 pick. If you like the quarterback, you got an up-and-coming quarterback that you can groom, you can mold. You have a all-pro running back. You have a defense that's still pretty good as long as you can keep them rested. And you beef up the offensive line. Again, you got the number 1 pick. I actually think it's you live in Arizona.
Yeah.
I think it's an incredibly attractive job.
I think a lot of people don't like Josh Rosen. He's not a very well.
Well, then you know what? You take the number 1 pick and you go get Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah. Well, you
don't have to spare Josh Rosen's feelings at all. You're the new guy. I have no ties.
I'm not against Arizona either. I think it's fine, but I think that's from, again,
but that's
the few
thing.
things I've read.
We're all sitting. We were sitting here saying. At least I was. I'm sitting here saying the first 3 teams in the NFL draft don't need to draft a quarterback. Well, that may not be the case. If you don't like Josh Rosen, fuck him. Get him.
Right.
Trade his ass. Put him somewhere else.
Exactly. Yep. No, that's for sure true. So that's Kingsbury, again. Hopefully, we'll get some good entertainment value. If he only wins a couple of games, this first couple of years, obviously we won't see him for very long. That'll be unfortunate. But we get, these 6 to 8 win seasons, and it'll be a whole lot of fun because they're going to have games where they lose 50-45. It'll be fun. I think it'll be a good time.
Texas Tech in the middle of Arizona.
think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited for this hire just because of the funness of it. That is the potential there being. Kingsbury's a very interesting guy. He's a really, really, really interesting guy. He's a brilliant dude. He's got a great mind. It'll be fun just to see how this all works. I mean, the success rate is obviously he's an underdog, certainly. I mean, a huge underdog, but that'll just be fun to watch.
And the question now is, as 5 spots get filled, 3 are still open, and the question is now that the what do you call it? I would say the Black Friday has commenced. Now, if you're these 3 teams, do you sit back and wait on the quote unquote more successful coaches and coordinators to come around?
Yes, you wait for where Mike McCarthy's going to go. I know he said that he's willing to take a year off. I think that's very, very unlikely that any of these 3 teams it would make to not bring a guy in that has had the success and is, a long-time guy that knows what he's doing. Yes, I know he had a rough last few seasons, but that to me is a good spot. Any of these spots make a whole lot of sense. And whether he's leaning towards the Jets like he's saying now, or people are saying now or not, I don't know. But that's the one. I think that's the big one to me of where we see him go, because and then the dominoes might fall a little bit differently based on his choice.
And it's definitely interesting that you say, he's willing to take a year off, because, you look at, let's look at a year, fast forward. Let's just say, theoretically, things kind of play out like they did now. Jacksonville could open up. Well, Oakland's not going to open up, obviously, but, the New York Giants could open up. The Redskins could open up. Atlanta could open up. Not Tampa Bay, but Carolina could open up.
Oh, yeah. Carolina.
You know what I'm saying? And so if there's something more in his wheelhouse that maybe next year could open up, he's definitely not hurting for money.
No, certainly not.
So maybe he does take the year off, do the Bruce Arians approach, get into broadcasting. If he doesn't strike me as the type.
He doesn't. He doesn't have that broadcasting feel to it. He's kind of quiet.
The other job I think that could really open up, that would really be the fuck you.
Minnesota, yeah. I figured that's where you're going.
It's
interesting.
Cousins struggles one more year. They go 8-8, and Zimmer's out, and
Zimmer looks like he's got kind of that ceiling sort of coach as well. I'm not really sure that he can get to the next level per se. I'm not
between you convinced. And I think he's hampered by the guy who the signal caller too. Again, I think Kirk Cousins is not the guy to get you to the promised
No
land.
argument from me. I watched him for too long there in Washington, very close to it, and I never saw it there, so I'm with.
So he may 100%. Have free pick of the litter for some more coaches.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right.
And who knows? Patricia might get tossed too. So he may have a few opportunities to
maybe the waiting game is
circle back around and stick the brown probe up Aaron Rodgers for the back end of his career.
Fair enough. Yeah, Minnesota wouldn't that be fun? That would be fun too. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, take the old Brett Favre route.
That would be good. Yeah, plus, there's at least still some quality players there. He could step into a team where
he stepped into the third year of Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook.
Yeah. 2 great receivers.
Two good receivers and a defense that's still pretty quality.
Yeah.
I don't know the contract situations of everybody, but
sure.
He might have 1 year to go balls to the wall before he has to kind of retool.
It's a lot better than stepping into the Detroit situation. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we've all stepped in the Detroit situation a number of times.
Nobody wants that one. Yeah, it's another job that if that comes open next year, how many really quality guys are going to want that?
Now that's a question. When you talk about how many people want the Arizona job, how many people would want the Detroit job?
No, from what I'm reading, the Arizona job was not like a big time thing. That they were struggling to get quality people for interviews.
And I have heard that the Bidwells are tough to just be around.
Be a part of, yes. Yeah. That was part of the reason, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more to it than that. I don't know.
So, fair enough. Well, we got 3 more openings at least this year so far, barring anything just out of the blue, Marty Schottenheimer style. You just never quite know.
You never know. That's right. That's definitely true. You never know.
God forbid Bill Belichick calls it quits at the end of this year.
Yeah, you have a big retirement of somebody. Exactly.
That one probably is already filled. With I got to imagine Josh McDaniels is just waiting on bated breath to take this job.
That'd be my guess.
Which Spike will love it. I don't know if you know Spike's not a McDaniels
No, I know
fan.
he is.
So, anyways.
Hard to like Josh McDaniels, let's be frank. But
that's going to wrap up our 45-minute snippet. We hope you enjoyed it, but we'll catch you on another one. that's it for us.